Week one of the college football season has started, but it doesn't get big or any bigger than Ohio State and Notre Dame playing Saturday night in the Horseshoe. We are in our final show for preparation for the big game. What do you think will happen? What are some realistic thoughts about what we can expect tomorrow and some keys to victory? Game predictions? We got all that jam-packed in today's episode of Locked on Buckeyes.
You are Locked on Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to the episode of Locked on Buckeyes, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Friday, September 2nd in the year 2022, and today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We are recording this show at the beginning of a jam-packed first day of week one. I was watching Ball State and Tennessee, Jeff. I was also watching a little bit of the Backyard Brawl. When I get done with this, I'll be watching Purdue and Penn State battle it out in a blackout in West Lafayette, Indiana. Oh, yeah, I did say Jeff. Jeff Hunt from the Off the Ball Network is back with us. He is excited. I am excited. Football is back. The week we've all been waiting for is finally here. It's Labor Day weekend. Many people don't have to work on Monday. And Jeff, man, I said a lot right there, but I'm glad you're back. And, man, football is back, man. I love this game.
Yeah, it is true. I like I told you before the show, like I feel like I've been tingling all week. I've had a different attitude. I've been a little hard to deal with. You know, you can ask, the guys at work, that I work with, I come in, they can just see the look on my face and they're like, what now, Jeff? Because every day I just come up with something that either like agitates me or irritates me or kind of gets me going. But it doesn't seem like I enjoy it, but that's what I love about this time of the year. It feels like it takes forever to get here, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's upon us, and you got all these constant thoughts running through your head, and you wake up in the middle of the night, and you're breaking down the game, and you're like, wait a minute, what's this thought? So thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me get some of this energy. It's like taking a Labrador retriever for a walk, Jay. Like you're letting me work some of this energy off. So it's a little easier to put up with me for the next 48 hours or so.
Jeff, the feeling that coaches get and players get before big games where they can't sleep, and it's like, Oh wait, I wake up at 1 a.m. and I'm trying to figure out what do I do on 3rd and 8 if the defense shows this if I'm the OC, or if you're the quarterback and the defense comes out in an odd look, you haven't seen this on the film. How do I quickly decipher this pre-snap, and how do I tackle that post-snap? That's kind of how I am, bro. Not going to lie to you. Like, it's Thursday. I work nights. This is my regular night job. I work nights. I didn't get much sleep in between shifts. And so my girlfriend was like, you need to try to get more sleep. She doesn't really understand just yet how big this is for me. As there's football on, and when I know there's football on the television, as much as I know I need sleep, sometimes the sleep can wait because football is that important. Dude, it doesn't get much bigger or much better than Ohio State, Notre Dame. Like, I could talk all about Ball State. I watched Ball State, a former teammate of Caden Curry, freshman DN at Ohio State. I wanted to watch Carson Steele play for Ball State, and, well, Ball State is off to I think 17-0 deficit right now against Tennessee. Last time I checked, flipped over to the Backyard Brawl. West Virginia, Pitt. Hello, I need that in my life. Right. And then also Purdue and Penn State, a big Big Ten battle. Big Ten battle on Thursday night. But with all that, it doesn't get better. Doesn't get better than Ohio State, Notre Dame. No. You can say whatever you want about Georgia and Oregon. Say whatever you want about Cincinnati and Arkansas. Jeff and I know that's a huge game for the sport in those two programs. But Ohio State, Notre Dame is different, man. Those helmets mean something. It means something that they're playing for the 7th time in the series of these two schools. This is the 7th time they're going to play each other, playing again next year in South Bend. But this year's game, the 100th anniversary of the Horseshoe, celebrating the 20-year anniversary of the 02 National Championship win. Dude, like, It doesn't get bigger than this, Jeff. It just doesn't for a week 1 matchup.
No, it's history. It's actually history in the making. Like, honestly, this will be one of the most viewed college football games of all time. It really will. Like, these brands are worldwide. They're the absolute 2 biggest brands in college football. I'm not saying the biggest teams, but just brands as far as fan bases. I mean, it's, again, Labor Day, Saturday night, opening weekend, 2 great teams. All the interaction between them. You got all the hype, all the hyperbole. It is just too much. And then the football side of it, one of these teams gets to launch themselves into the national championship race, coming out of this game. Whichever team wins, puts themselves in great position. The team that loses has some catching up to do. There's stakes. It's not just the helmets on the line. Like, there's actual, like, 2 good football teams. Everything just worked out great. Great players on both sides. The storylines never stop. It's a big deal. These fan bases, like, if people don't know, like, in the areas themselves are really intertwined. Kind of around here in Ohio. If you're a non-Ohio State fan, chances are probably second is Notre Dame, and then third Michigan, as far as if you're not an Ohio State fan. Not that there's a lot of that, but you and then there's a lot of, like, because they don't play a lot, there's a lot of Notre Dame / Ohio State fans, like a lot of those, because they don't play much, and so that's a big deal. It's a personal rivalry. It means a lot. All the stakes are on the line. It's in one of the great coliseums in sports. It's just you check every single box about this game.
You have to check every single box. And in this game, here's some storylines for you. Recruiting wise, Jeff, there was a guy, a 5-star defensive end who decommitted from Notre Dame, who's going to be visiting Ohio State on the Ohio State sidelines that night as well. You have Marcus Freeman, former player at Ohio State. Really, I think he had 100 tackles, and they went to the BCS National Championship game.
Legendary player.
5th-year pick by the Chicago Bears when he came out of Ohio State. He's also coaching with his former teammate, James Laurinaitis. First time coaching as well for Laurinaitis, going from being a radio show host and calling games on TV to now being a football coach at Notre Dame. You got the quarterback. You have a first-time starter in Tyler Buckner. You got Stroud, who is a Heisman front runner, who is a favorite to win the Heisman, in the conversation preseason. You have 2 guys who might be in New York at the end of the season, Travion Henderson and Jackson Smith-Njigba. You have Michael Mayer and Isaiah Foskey on Notre Dame side, who Jim Knowles knows. These guys, he said Michael Mayer is the tight end, is a pro. You have Isaiah Foskey, who people realize he's a first-round talent right now. You have brothers on both sides. Lorenzo Styles at Notre Dame, Sonny Styles at Ohio State. Mom has a wreath. I saw a picture of it on Twitter. One side Notre Dame colors, the other side Ohio State colors. I mean, I can keep going on and on. Jeff, these storylines are there, man. Like, these are just a few that stick out to me. What storylines stick out to you?
That's it for sure. It is definitely the homecoming of being a lifetime Buckeye fan, to have Freeman and Laurinaitis coming into the shoe and trying to beat Ohio State. That it doesn't even make sense to me, because these aren't just 2 guys that played for the Buckeyes. These are 2 legendary Buckeyes that people. I mean, Laurinaitis worked and lived and did radio out of Ohio. Like, that was our guy. So that's, as far as storylines, that's the biggest. And then, of course, it's let's be honest here, Ryan Day needs to win a game.
Yes,
that is, to me, the biggest storyline is Ryan Day needs to win a big game. And I understand he beat Clemson 2 years ago in the playoffs and we're spoiled, but the fact of the matter is he has underachieved in these big games for the last couple years, and he's got everything he wants. He's got the quarterback he wants. He's got they've got all the the coaches they wanted, the defensive coordinator. You got Knowles coming in. You couldn't ask for more weapons on offense. It's in your place. You have every advantage. I mean, obviously Vegas thinks so. Everybody thinks so. The storyline is Ryan Day has to come in here and take care of business and walk away, or there's going to be giant question marks come Sunday morning.
So Jeff and I pre-show were talking about, had a little conversation, and I was discussing, and I really listed off the top of my head, games where Ohio State either lost or looked really bad or barely squeaked by with the win. And so we're going to go with the first 3 games of the season last year. Talking about Ryan Day and how he has to approach this game. Well, Minnesota, Ohio State would have lost the game if Minnesota's running back didn't get hurt. The next week, Oregon was a loss. This is 2 games that were close or losses where the Buckeyes didn't play up to par. Week 3, first 3 games of the year, Tulsa. People got on Stroud. The defense was a liability at times. I could talk about players and the defensive coaches that messed things up, but those are 3 games.
Am I correct? Stroud actually took a week off. I mean, I know he was
against
injured.
Akron. Yes, but correct.
You remember Stroud didn't play for, like, it's hard to believe now. We're talking about the Heisman front runner. Like he didn't play for a week for whatever reason, however you feel that he didn't. Like, that happened a year ago.
A year ago, man. And we can keep on going. The Nebraska game was close. Shouldn't have been that close. I told you going into it, Nebraska has players. Might not be a good collective unit and good talent. Might not have the chemistry. They have a lot of talent on that team. You had the Penn State game was close. The Michigan game was a loss, and the Buckeyes played really, really bad. Utah, the Buckeyes barely beat the Utes, and it took Stroud and Jigba having out-of-their-mind games to win that game. And so I think about all that going into this. It's not just Ryan Day. There's a level of physicality at Ohio State which has not been there since Ryan Day has coached. And so it's gotten better. 2020 was one thing. 2021 last year. 2019, Jeff and I understand, was like that team was loaded with NFL talent, and they showed it every single week. But as I think about tomorrow, Jeff, I wonder, do we get the Buckeye team that people have raved about all offseason? Being aggressive on defense, linebackers flying around, D-line's more physical, giving the O-line some fits. The offense is doing things. Stroud is looking like one of the best players some of these people have ever seen in their lives. Or do we get the Buckeye team that we saw last year when even against lesser opponents like Minnesota, Tulsa, Nebraska, they weren't the more physical team. They weren't the more technically sound team. They weren't the team that played like they were supposed to play. Notre Dame is good. Really, really good. But I wonder, will the Buckeyes be physical tomorrow? Or will they be a team that was kind of like last year? Couldn't shed blockers, couldn't tackle. O-line was miscommunicating. Stroud had to make some big boy throws and big boy plays to keep the team in the game. Granted, you had 2 guys that were first-round picks at receiver last year, so that helped you. But, Jeff, I keep seeing a lot of people say blowout, blowout, blowout. I don't see a blowout tomorrow because I don't know what Buckeye team shows up. Sometimes that scares me.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I keep saying the same thing. We're hinging a lot on, this magical defensive change. And Knowles is a great defensive coach, but I'm like, I need to see what the players do. I need to see what these linebackers do. I need to see if you can just do your assignment, and tackle, fill gaps, things like that, because Notre Dame knows what they're going to do. They've been one of the most, you talk about, technically sound teams. They've been one of the most technically sound teams for years. Under Kelly, a lot of times they were like watching poetry in motion. They've had a great run there. You said it. They basically just haven't had that quarterback that Ohio State has. I would say if you take a couple of those seasons, and like last year, if you give Notre Dame CJ Stroud, they go to the playoffs. That's just plain and simple. That's how paper thin we're talking about the differences. Now, if all these 4 and 5 stars that Ohio State's got, over the past, I don't know, I guess that now we're up to a decade, but really the last few years. If they translate, if Knowles does come in and make a difference, because coaches can make a difference quick with young people. Mm-hmm. If all that happens, great. It's going to be awesome. They're going to be flying around. They're going to be a tough team to beat. I do have a lot of confidence in the offense, but I'm with you. Do I think that the Ohio State first game of the year can just roll a team out there and blow out a technically sound, tough team like Notre Dame? I don't see that, because we didn't see it last year. We saw one game where they were dominant. That was Michigan State. And, that was one of the most dominant games anybody played last year. Other than that, I don't know what we're supposed to base it off of, because we're not there at practice every day. Do I think 10 games from now they're going to be one of the best teams in the country? Absolutely. No question about it. They're going to be great. This is game 1. That's a different animal altogether.
Different animal. And I think that with Jeff and I kind of being on the same page here, it makes me wonder, why am I not hearing more people have these conversations? Because I have talked to people and everyone's saying blow out this, blow out that. 17.5-point spread right now via our friends at BetOnline. The spread's huge. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, I think when the spread first came out, I think Jeff had a tweet when I tweeted simply out what the point spread was. I think it opened at 14 or 14.5. I think Jeff and I both agreed that I think it was going to get closer going to kickoff, not wider. So I don't know what it is. Now I know Vegas is trying to get people to put money down, so I get all that stuff. But in my heart, in the football analyst and guy that I am, taking the hat off of the Ohio State, you see the flag behind me, but let's have a real conversation. When it comes down to it, week 1, this game's going to be close because one side of the ball for Ohio State is probably going to be working some kinks out once they're there. Now, if this was week 5, 6, 7,
absolutely,
I could get you 14, 15, 16 points at that time. Both teams will be better, should be better at that time. Hopefully there aren't any crazy injuries, but both teams should be better. But I think by week 5, 6, 7, the Buckeyes offense will be rolling. O-line will be fine. We'll have a good picture about what the defense will be, which I do believe it will be better. Still more of a wait and see mode. So for week 1, I just don't get it, man. But that does not scare me. I don't get it now. I trust Stroud. I want to trust the O-line, even though there's 3 new starters. Paris Johnson's not a new starter, just new at a position. He has a tough task with Isaiah Foskey, man. That dude is going to make him work. And so the offense is one thing. I believe in these young guys, Tuimoloau, Sawyer, Tyreek Williams, Chambers, Eichenberg. One of the bright spots of the secondary, which most people don't talk about, is Denzel Burke, who Ryan Roberts, Jeff, even said Burke might be the best DB out there, and he can't go to the NFL next year. I trust the talent. It's just week 1, man. And week 1, I gotta pump the brakes and be like, look, what's reality? Reality is Notre Dame's good. Ohio State's good as well.
Yeah.
Ohio State has more wait and see than Notre Dame does. So I don't buy into the 17.5-point spread that BetOnline has right now.
I think the biggest thing is that people are trying to figure out where Notre Dame's going to get their points. They're thin at wide receiver. A new starting quarterback, that is a thing. Like if Ohio State was coming into this game, with Stroud last year in Minnesota, I would be really nervous. We know how good he wound up being, but the fact of the matter is the first time you start a football game, that is a big deal. And I know he's had some playing time, but Buckner is still, he has this is a big moment.
Yes.
So I think that's the thing is I think everybody's just like they can't find a way for Notre Dame to keep up on offense. And that's what I would imagine everybody finds, because let's face it, if the Buckeyes can cover that tight end, because they're going to wear out that seam route up the middle of the field with their tight end, and they should. He's a beast. If they can slow that down, that is going to take away a massive part of the, Notre Dame's offense. But it's one of these games. If Notre Dame keeps this a lead or keeps it close going into the 4th, to where now you're having a knockdown drag out, now you're talking about a whole different, situation. I know it sounds like I'm being negative here. I'm with you. It's just because it's game 1. Anything can happen. We watched the Minnesota game last year. By the end of the year, you saw the difference, how much better Ohio State was than that Minnesota team. But Minnesota had them on the ropes for most of that game. And that concerns me.
It does concern me. But, Jeff, we are at the point of the show where I kind of gave you a little bit more of a preview about what's to come during this show. Normally, as you guys know, Jeff and I just say, Jeff, can you come on? Here's a topic. Don't share notes. But I wanted to give Jeff more of a update about what to come during the show. I want Jeff to share some keys to victory that he has. Jeff does his own ranking. Jeff has his own Buckeye remix show that he does. Jeff does a phenomenal job of breaking down the football. And I like Jeff because Jeff watches the film. Jeff watches games, lets his eyeballs tell him what's happening out there, and then he analyzes what he sees. So, Jeff, one key to the game on offense, one key to the game for the Buckeyes, things they need to do to win on Saturday night.
Okay, as simple as this. On offense, I said I kind of think they have to do a body blow approach. Do I think Ohio State could come out and go run and gun and launch it and score an 80-yard touchdown right off the bat? And get off the field? I really do. I think they had that kind of offense. But what we found out over the years is, I've always said this about a quick strike, a hurry up offense. It just puts the other team back on the field immediately. Yeah. What I need Ohio State to do is and the best example that anybody's ever had of this is Tom Brady. Tom Brady took teams out of a game. He came out and got the ball out of his hand and dinked and dunked, so to speak. But he would take his team down for a 7-minute scoring drive that you never had a chance to stop. It demoralizes the team. It takes the defense out of it. It gets them wore out. That's the thing. You want this defense to get reps. Like, we all know that Notre Dame is going to want to get after Stroud. So if you get off the field, I understand, even if you score a touchdown, that's great against Akron, to just keep scoring touchdowns. But you don't want that fresh Notre Dame defense coming back on the field. They really got to have a game plan to, like, take 10, 11 yards at a time, take what they give you. If you break one, that's fine. Really establish your running game. Ohio State really got away from that at the end of the year. I know it sounds like old school stuff, and everybody wants to drive it down the field, but just take what's open in the middle and keep Notre Dame's defense on the field, and then still punch it in with that touchdown and demoralize them. That's the key, is like, in all season. I think that's the thing. I think sometimes, honestly, like, I'm still one of these, you can score too fast on defense. The one word I have is communication. I need communication between the signal callers. I need communication between Knowles. I need communication between, the defense, the linebackers, whoever's calling. Because in this defense, you guys, everybody's going to see, tomorrow night, they're going to line up. The safeties have a lot of responsibility. The whole point of this defense is disguise. Like, we're not supposed to know who's covering who. We're not supposed to know who's blitzing. We're not supposed to know who's dropping back. We don't know if it's zone. We don't know if it's a man. But if everybody's not on the same page, you're gonna turn this tight end loose up the middle of the field, or you're gonna have a wide receiver. Hey, some wide receiver that we don't know his name yet have 200 yards. Like, it's all about communication. Like, and it's got to be quick. They got to call the signal in, because this is a new defense, and it's a lot of this isn't a vanilla defense, so to speak. This is quite the opposite. This is Neapolitan. This is pistachio. This is whatever you want to call it. So you got to have great communication between Ryan Day. Him and Knowles have to be on the same page. Knowles and his guys have to be on the same page. They have to be calling these plays in. They have to recognize, and they have to call these out, and they have to not blow assignments, because we've seen that for the last few years now. One of the biggest problems that Ohio State's had is especially, not to call them out, but their linebackers have just not known where to be on the field, and they've just got gouged that way. So my whole thing is communication. We know they've got the athletes. If you run the defense properly, if you make the right calls, if you're in position, you're going to hold Notre Dame to a certain point total that your offense is going to be able to win the ball game. Let's be honest. If they can hold Notre Dame to 28, Ohio State probably wins this game. We're not telling you to shut them out. Just do your job, stay in front of them, make your tackles, and get out of there.
Offensively, Jeff, I've been saying some stuff all week, and really for the past couple weeks, and I've been kind of teasing at what my keys to victory are for this game specifically. First thing for the offense, you just got to establish the run game, man. I think it's harder than what you think, especially with how I just kind of laid it out. Ohio State has 2 new starting guards and a new starting left tackle. Notre Dame is talented all over the place on defense. And so if you're going to sit here and tell me, well, Jay Paris Johnson Jr. is talented, it's his natural position. We haven't seen him there, so I don't know what you're going to basing it off of outside of you say, oh, he's a 5-star. I don't care about the recruiting database stuff. To me, on the field, that means absolutely nothing. We all know when you're a new starter, new position, first-year starter, there might be struggles. When you're going up against a first-round talent in the NFL in next year's draft, you might struggle a little bit. Establish the running game. Because if you want to open up the passing windows for these receivers and for Stroud to have big boy windows, like the windows to my left as I'm at my table, these are pretty big windows. It would be hard for myself, you, Stroud to throw the ball through the window from a distance. That's the way you want these windows to be like for Stroud to throw the ball to Egbuka, Njigba, Harrison Jr., Fleming, the tight end Stover, and Warrior. We want those windows to be big, but you have to establish the run. I also don't really – it's not all on Henderson. Like, people got on Henderson last year for his 1,200 yards, whatever, touchdowns. Still wasn't playing up to probably keep a thought. A lot of it was on the offensive line, not opening holes consistently for them. Jeff, also – on defense, I'm putting all of my stock, or not stock, a lot of pressure on the front four. You highlighted the secondary. You also discussed the linebackers. I need these guys up front. And I don't care what combination of 4 they bring in, or if it's 3 at one point and they drop 8. I really don't care. Get pressure with guys on the D-line. You can say whatever you want about Zach Harrison. He is talented. He doesn't put it together all the time, but he is still a talented player. He can get pressure against Notre Dame. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, another seasoned guy. Yeah. He can get pressure against Notre Dame. Tyler Friday, coming off of an injury, he can get pressure against Notre Dame. You got those two young bulls that are sophomores, Tui Malowau and Sawyer, who I think will just go off and bust heads all season long. They can get pressure against Notre Dame. Tyleik Williams, Mike Hall, Teron Vincent, Jerron Cage, all the guys on the D-line. You have to get pressure with those guys. Because if you want to ease the pressure off the safeties who have a lot of responsibility, you got to get Okay, Tui Malowau was doing a little tribute to Sean Taylor with his face mask. I don't know if you saw it. You know how Sean Taylor had the tape that was on the face mask?
Yeah.
So Tui Malowau was doing the same thing. Sean Taylor, who unfortunately is no longer with us, will tell you he can't do his job if the big boys up front of the D-line aren't doing theirs. It's the same thing with the Buckeyes defense. The guys up front have to do their job. I'm talking specifically in the passing game because you mentioned Michael Mayer. I think Lorenzo Styles will turn some heads. And then Chris Tyree out the backfield, little 5'9" short guy of his own. He can do some crazy things as well. Make sure you get pressure with the front four, and it will ease things for everybody at the linebacker and defensive back position on the team. When it comes to team predictions, Jeff is here. I told him this as well. I want to give mine first. Now, it's not the first place I give my game prediction, or score prediction, but I'm going to give the same one I gave Monday on the podcast. I'm going to give it right here to everyone here listening on Locked on Buckeyes. I think Ohio State wins. I don't know what Jeff is going to say, but I think Jeff and I are going to agree. I think Ohio State wins. But I am going 31-24 Buckeyes. I do think at some point it's probably 31-21. Notre Dame kicks a field goal late, make it a 7-point game. But I still think the Buckeyes win this game. They can be more physical. They can have the better offense. They are more talented. I'm not going to discredit Notre Dame and how good that team is probably going to be in 2022. Jeff, where do you stand with the game on Saturday night?
Yeah, we're on the same page. I wrote mine down just so I couldn't be accused of cheating because I was like, sometimes me and Jay pick the exact same score. I wound up with a weird number of 34-21 Buckeyes.
Okay.
It's probably crazy. Notre Dame probably gets a field goal in there, so it's probably because I think it's the same thing. I think it's a tight game. I don't think that it's like Buckeyes score late, to build that, if anything, because I do think that Ohio State's the better team, and I would say that against almost everybody. So, if you'd give me a 13-point victory, I'm going to tell you like I'm ecstatic about it. But I don't think going into the fourth quarter that Buckeye fans are taking a nap. Let's put it that way.
No.
This Notre Dame team is going to fight. They're not going to wear down. They're going to be ready to go late. Who knows? Maybe Ohio State jumps on them early, because that's the one thing that we haven't talked about, Jay. And I just want to be clear. We do recognize that Ohio State has the ability to go up like 28-0. They do have they could have one of the best offenses in, honestly, college football in the last 100 years.
Yeah.
If everything goes right. So I do recognize that they could jump out on Notre Dame. I don't think they will. But they could. But I still think it winds up kind of being a mess in the end. I got a lot of faith. I've just watched too many Notre Dame games over the last 5-6 years to think that all of a sudden these kids forgot how to play football because they got a new coach. And a lot of respect to Marcus Freeman, who I thought someday, and I still may think someday, that will be the coach of Ohio State. I have a lot of respect for him, and I think that his team will show up to play.
Yeah, man, this game's going to be a big one, a huge one.
Oh.
And I'm excited. So excited for this game to be played on Saturday night. Jeff, where could the good people follow you on Twitter and to catch some of the phenomenal Buckeye stuff you're doing throughout the entire season?
Yeah, so if you're not watching, you can see I'm at jhunt006 on Twitter. Do a lot of stuff, vice president, and work with the Off the Ball Network, so all the guys over there. I do a Buckeye remix every week, so I do like my version of kind of a grade card, a recap after the season. So that's at Jeff Needs Sports podcast. So go check that out. That podcast is completely biased. It's completely one-sided. It's completely from a Buckeye fan standpoint, not an analyst standpoint. So that's a lot of fun. And then, of course, I just do some NFL stuff and, so throughout the year. But, just check out JeffNeedsSportsPodcast.com. And again, I want to thank Locked On Buckeyes and Jay for having me on again. This is the highlight of my week, and I feel like I burnt some of this energy off. I feel like I'm a better person going forward than I was when I got here, Jay.
Mission accomplished, guys. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send all of your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to Locked on Buckeyes on YouTube and also on your favorite podcast listening app as well. Locked on Buckeyes, subscribe so you're notified on the audio side when the new show comes out to download it. Also on YouTube, hit that bell so you're notified every time a new show is uploaded to the Locked on Buckeyes YouTube page. Check out Locked on Big Ten. Nate Dickinson, their host, will have a recap of everything that happened during week 1 of the college football season inside the Big Ten football conference. I might have to get Jeff back on because there was some news about the CFP playoff and how it might expand before the end of the contract. So I don't know. I haven't talked to Jeff about this yet. I don't know if my schedule will allow me to have Jeff back on to discuss this topic, more of a Buckeye point of view, but also a grand big picture point of view. But you never know. Jeff might pop up when you don't expect it, when you least expect it, which is why you need to subscribe so you see when Jeff makes an appearance back on Locked on Buckeyes. Guys, I'm done talking. There's football on. I want to watch it. Jeff wants to watch it. You want to watch it. Thanks for tuning in to Locked on Buckeyes, getting you ready for the big game tomorrow night against the Irish. I'm done talking. Have a great day. And, oh, yeah, enjoy this weather, man. It's beautiful outside.